Hello, Mr. B here, coming back with another video for y'all. With the news of Sony and physical games pretty much coming to a halt on 2028, I wanted to talk to you about one of their best works. Uh, this is God of War, the original. I picked up a physical copy for this game about a couple months ago, and so far I've been having a ton of fun with it. And I just wanted to highlight it and talk about it, and still remind you guys that this is on the PlayStation 2 and PlayStation 3 in collection form. This game came out back in 2005, around the 4 year, or well, 4.5 year life cycle for the PlayStation 2. The game was, of course, critically acclaimed. Sold units, I believe it was an instant hit, selling around 4.6 million copies alone on the PlayStation 2. Eventually surpassed 5 million copies across all releases. The game was scoring around 94 out of 100 at the time. Game reviewers did praise it with its fast combat, definitely brutal, which is what Santa Monica was going for, and the stylish boss battles for the time. It was very Hollywood in terms of presentation, and it was really pushing the PlayStation 2 graphics at that time and era. The end of the console life cycle around that time, um, which was pushing close to 5 years. And I believe the PlayStation 2 was announced around this time and released in 2006. So it tells you a lot about how far into the PlayStation 2 lifecycle God of War. David Jaffe had a video once that he did talk about how he enjoyed Onimusha Warlords, and he was inspired, and he thought, what if we made this, put in Greek mythology, as he was a fan of the older Greek mythology movies that he grew up watching, which, of course, I did as well. And they were, as a kid, those were the best mythology movies, and I love them as well. And I can see where he got inspired from. The Medusas, the Hydras, the Minotaurs, all those were included in these games, and they were highlighted and very beautifully. And um, the other inspiration he got from, and if you guys have played the game or see footage of the game, you'll see that they have a great combo based mechanic in terms of the action. If you see the counter on the top right of every hit that you're making, it does count very similar to Devil May Cry stylish counter. And this is admittedly and been a inspiration for the God of War 1 team. If you ever play the game, it's actually great. The mechanics are deeper than people expect. They have light and heavy attacks, grab attacks, and each grab attack has about 3 different inputs, and each of those inputs do something different. You can also grab characters as you're launching them in the air by holding down the Y button, and then if you're close enough and you hit the grab button, you can initiate or activate a grab frame, and it will, depending on the character, some will do a hard knockdown to the ground. Bigger characters, if you have more of a cannon fodder character, it will toss it to the ground and have a ground bounce, and you can continue your combo. Each time you level your chain blades, which is not the only weapon you get, you will unlock a new set of moves, and each move will either have a new attack for a special attack, which does leave you vulnerable for enemy attacks, and you have to use them very strategically throughout combat, especially in the harder difficulties. Which, if you ever get the chance to play that, I would recommend you play those with a harder difficulty, because you start to really implement the mechanics that they wanted you to use during this gameplay. As you can see, if you hit with the light attack, the attack is a little quicker, and it puts you and your character into a little stun mode, where it gives you the ability to either launch or hit him with a heavy attack or a grab. Typically, what the game does input for you during the tutorial, it is hitting them with light attacks 3 times or 2, and then hitting them with a Y, or I keep saying Y, but I meant to say triangle. I was an Xbox guy, so I keep doing that. Xbox controller guy. You keep hitting triangle, and once that triangle is input, you slam your chains on the ground, giving them a ground bounce, lifting up in the air. From there, you can continue to do additional light combos with heavies, or do a light, and then holding down the heavy, launching you and the enemy up in the air, giving you the chance to continue your aerial combo. At the same time, you can continue to implement those combos by hitting your lights and then your heavy. Once you hit your heavy while you're in the air, it will hit them on the ground as a ground bounce and lift them back to where you are, give you additional time to finish him off. And this is a great way if you want to isolate a character or an enemy and focus on him, because during the harder difficulties, the enemies will attack while you're mid combo, and you don't have an armor or attack armor that will pause them from hitting you. They will actually interfere with your combo and leave you in a staggered state, which is not the best state to be in, especially when you're fighting larger characters that can hit you multiple times in the staggered state and really damage your health bar. Many times will kill you within 2 to 3 hits. I just want to go into a little bit deeper into the development. Monica had David Jaffe as the director, and it sounds like the developers did have several difficulties during this time. It sounds like some of them were the loading the enormous environments without any noticeable loading screens. And I don't know if you've ever played the game, you'll see what I mean by that. The environments within that game are amazing. They're beautiful. They're very cinematic. It feels like you're watching a movie, and which is kind of what brought a lot of people in the PS2 era. And I believe, in my opinion, this is really where Sony started picking up the story based games. And I think, I know there was Jack and Dexter back in the day, but I know that Santa Monica really portrayed how you can see a game, really evolved it, in creating this larger atmosphere and cinematic. You are telling a story with your environment, with a HD, almost an HD um, looking environment, and even though it wasn't, but it felt like it at the time. The other difficulty they had was rendering giant enemies was apparently something that they had a hard time with, in order to keep the performance smooth. At the time, the PlayStation 2, they unlocked a lot of the performance, but it still wasn't enough to create certain characters, such as bigger characters like the Hydra, for example. One thing they wanted was smooth gameplay, and it's hard to have a big character render without losing any frames, making it look choppy. The other thing was the blades of chaos. They wanted it to feel realistic, and if you ever play the game, you'll see that the camera angles are very interesting for its time, but not bad. And I think that was because they knew how to make the chains feel great, for one, realistic in terms of battle, but also being able to find Kratos on the map because of the way that they designed the chains and the way that they would glow, the way that it would glow, or they would glow, because there's two of them. And it really did help uh, highlight Kratos on the field. So you weren't playing two games, right? God of War and Where's Kratos? So I believe Jaffe did mention that Tenchu on PlayStation 2, a red hue for the blade so they won't lose him. And that was more of a mechanical uh, response to the camera view there. Um, and then, of course, blending in the combat puzzles, they were very much inspired by Eco, which is another thing they confirmed. The platforming and the cinematic storytelling in one continuous experience was apparently a harder thing to do for them, which makes sense because if you play the game, you can see the quality of the game. It was amazing. It still holds up to today. And the reason why I feel it holds up to today is what I mentioned earlier in terms of mechanics and uh, the battles that you were having. It was fast combo based. It was very much fast combo based. A lot of people, and it's a mix of that and somewhat of a muso, where you can really dedicate yourself to comboing one character or two at a time, but balancing that out and and also using your blades and other weapons and specials with crowd control. Um, that is a big aspect of the game. Is how can you clear the room and still look cool doing it and creating combos and stuff like that. It was really fun to do, and the more you unlock your weapons, the better or the easier it is to clear rooms, as well as your power ups. Um, of course, your light and heavies is something that are crucial in the game, and your heavies are definitely punishable if you don't do them right and time them right. But you also have your rolls. You had a roll like your dodge roll, and that was on your left thumbstick, which would keep you away from your attack buttons, which was almost I don't know if that was intentional, but it definitely makes you strategize a little bit more because it keeps you away from attacking immediately. Whereas today, we're very used to having the block button and the left thumbstick to move out of the way and dodge, which is pretty cool. And it also adds another layer of strategy. You also have your counters or your parries that we call them now, thanks to Souls games. But your counter, they do have parries. God of War 1 had a parry. If you time the attack and block right, you are given the opportunity later on to either punish them with a light attack or heavy attack. The heavy attack will then cause the enemy to juggle on one single enemy and creating and increasing your combo count, which was pretty amazing. This game changed the industry, and I don't know, you guys probably will remember this from back in the day. That's quick time events they were becoming mainstream during boss battles around this time, and it really did help create Hollywood style cinematic boss fight because it was engaging and it was almost like it was a cinematic where you got a close up of Kratos and the enemy getting attacked. And because of that, really engage by clicking in those buttons and make you feel like you're part of the raw destruction of Kratos in the cinematic form. Later on, of course, the game inspired games like Heavenly Sword, one of my personal favorites, Dante's Infernos, Castlevania Lord of Shadows. I thought the first game was great. The puzzles were a little hard in that game, but the first game was amazing. The combat felt heavy. The whip in that game felt amazing. And then, of course, the Darksiders franchise, specifically the first one and two. It's been 20 years, and God of War remains to be one of PlayStation's original defining franchises. It led to multiple sequels, of course, some prequels. If you guys haven't played, there's the Origins collection out there, and it's the new games that came out. For example, God of War 2018. Helped sell over 60 million games sold across, the franchise. So the game has had a long-lasting effect. This, like it or not, the last games that came out they're sold well and they're well received by the public. Well, the first one did, and the second one, I don't know. It was a little mixed, but they were not bad games. The only criticism I had about those games were um, which was one of my favorite points, was the combo system. The combo system was somewhat there, but it was definitely more flat-footed. It didn't feel as responsive or fun, I guess, to do. The story was great. The character development for Kratos was amazing between him and his son, and the world was nice. I loved the world of Norse mythology. I think they did great. They really polished the game, but the combat was just kind of, in my opinion, to me, it was boring. It actually got a little better once he got a certain weapon, but the game wasn't bad, and I hope they go back to the first style of combat, which I think they might, in Lefay or Leve, or whatever they call the name. So I'm looking forward to that combat. I hope they just cut some of those cinematics down. I'm not really interested in watching cinematics for my games. I want to play games, not watch movies. If I wanted to do that, I'd go watch a movie. But that's just me. That's my opinion. I love video games for the game, not for the movie. Which is why I love the first trilogy of God of War. I think they had a great balance of storytelling and action and gameplay and badassery, in my opinion. So that's kind of where I want to leave this. Hope you guys if you guys ever see the game out somewhere, pick it up. It still holds up. It's a great game. If you can get the collection, the Solid collection, or the 1 and 2 collection, which is on PlayStation 3, the game will surprise you. If you want, give yourself a challenge and play it on hard, and that's where a lot of the mechanics really start to shine. So again, go out, play some games, have a good day. Mr. B is out.